The black sunflower seed sits in the center of your palm, cool and a little dusty, while morning air carries that sharp two-note call from the fence line. And for a second, you can picture it perfectly. A great tit on your hand, light as a leaf stem, choosing to come closer than a wild bird ever should. That image feels small from the outside. Just you, a bird, a garden, a moment of stillness. But what makes it so powerful is that the bird is not being careless. It is not confused. It is measuring you. If you watch one long enough, you start to notice the pattern. The same little body with the yellow breast and black stripe lands near the feeder, then farther off, then near again. Some mornings, it lifts away the instant you shift your weight. Other mornings, it stays on the branch and only turns its head, as if it is revising something in real time. That is the beginning of the science here. A bird carries a threat radius, a line around its body where safety ends and escape begins. And with a great tit, that line can change for one person. That is the part most people miss. When this bird studies you from a bare twig or feeder hook, it is not asking whether humans are safe. It is asking whether you are. And before a hand ever becomes a place to land, something inside that tiny nervous system has to be persuaded. One quiet morning at a time. If you enjoy this kind of slow, close look at backyard birds, subscribe and stay with me for the next part. And that is where the waiting gets interesting. Because the bird does not shrink back in one clean step. It changes in small, uneven inches. One morning, it holds on the lilac branch while you reach for the feeder. The next, it lets you stand a little closer before the old alarm flicks on. That shifting edge is the approach tolerance gradient, though all it really means is this. The bird keeps updating its answer to the same question. Is this person still a danger? With a great tit, those updates can be very specific. It may sit calmly at 1 meter when it knows your shape, your pace, your voice through the glass, and then snap away from a stranger who has not even come that near. That difference matters. The bird is not becoming less wild. It is building individual recognition, one careful encounter at a time. You can see the change in the body before you can name it. The feathers stay sleek instead of puffing tight. The head turns fast, but the feet do not launch. The little bird holds the branch and watches your hand move slowly toward the feeder tray, as if it is measuring not just distance, but intention. And if you have ever stood there with seed in your palm, you know the strange part. The hand is not the hard moment yet. The hard moment is the silence before it. The bird is still deciding whether your open hand belongs to the same safe pattern it has been learning, or whether today breaks the pattern at the worst possible second. And this is where you begin to notice that not all of them read the same situation the same way. At the feeder, one bird flicks in, grabs a seed, and vanishes into the ivy before you can settle your breathing. Another lingers on the wire tray, turning sideways to inspect you with that bright, hard eye. Then there is sometimes one more, just willing to stay with the question a little longer. With a great tit, that difference is not your imagination. In long-term studies of marked wild birds, they show steady differences along a bold, shy axis. Some explore sooner, some hang back, some test. That matters more than people think. If you are hoping for the day one of them will take food from your hand, it is rarely the most hungry bird that gets there first. It is often the one most ready to investigate a new arrangement without panicking at the first uncertainty. You start to spot it in tiny ways. The bird that comes back first after a gust rattles the feeder. The one that shifts to a closer twig instead of a safer one. The the one that looks at your fingers instead of only at the seed. And once you see that pattern, the whole garden changes. You are no longer waiting on the birds. You are watching one temperament edge forward, which is exactly why the next step has to be handled with almost unfair patience, because the bolder bird is not offering bravery for free. It is offering you a chance not to waste what it has begun. So the next part is not reaching farther. It is becoming easier to predict. The bird learns from repetition, and repetition has a texture. The same chair legs on the same paving stones, the same coat sleeve against the feeder post, the soft scrape of seed in a dish. Morning after morning, the air smells damp, or cold, or green, but your outline stays familiar. For a great tit, that kind of steadiness matters more than people think. Safety is not built out of affection. It is built out of reliable outcomes. You can feel when you have pushed too much, even before it leaves. The body tightens, the head snaps once, then twice. The feet shift higher on the perch. Then it is gone in a yellow and black flick, and the branch springs back empty. That is not failure. It is information. The line has been crossed too fast. What works better is almost dull from the human side. You arrive. You settle. You let the feeder remain the center of the scene. You do not ask the bird to solve two new things at once. First, your nearness becomes ordinary. Then, your stillness becomes ordinary. Only after that can your hand enter the picture without breaking the whole pattern. And this is where patience starts to feel oddly serious. Because when a great tit takes food from a hand, it is suspending the oldest rule it has. Never allow something larger than you within striking distance. The feeder is one thing. Your hand is another. By now, the bird has already started to change the shape of the yard around you. It does not cross the whole space in one dramatic move. It just shortens the pause. A great tit that once bailed out the moment you stepped outside may now keep feeding while you stand still, the feeder creaking softly in the wind, the seed husks tapping the tray. That is the real work here. Just letting the bird discover that your presence does not need an escape plan. And when that happens, the threat radius begins to shrink in a way you can almost feel. One morning, the bird holds at the edge of the chair. Another morning, it lands on the rail and keeps looking down at your hand instead of at your face. The important thing is that it is still gathering evidence. It is still deciding whether the larger creature in front of it is worth worrying about. That is why the open hand matters so much. Not because it is a gesture, because it is a test. The bird understands in its own language. Food is there. Safety is there. Or isn't. And the only reason the question even becomes possible is that all the earlier, quieter questions have already gone the right way. You may think you are waiting for a bird to get brave, but really, you are watching it update its whole view of you, one short visit at a time. And then one morning, it moves a little closer than before. By now, the hand is not the only thing the bird is reading. It is reading the pause before the hand moves. A great tit notices the small weather of a person long before the person notices the bird has noticed. The shift of a shoulder, the sound of a boot on stone, the way you stop half a step short instead of entering too fast. That is why the slow approach matters. It gives the bird a clean pattern to compare against, and every clean pattern lowers the noise around you. Over time, the flight initiation distance shrinks because the bird has more and more evidence that nothing bad follows your nearness. And once that distance narrows, the whole scene changes shape. The feeder is no longer a shield between you and the bird. It becomes just a habit in the middle of a bigger question. Will the same bird that already accepts your presence at the rail accept your palm when the seed moves there? Will it treat your open hand as part of the same safe day? That is the point where patience starts to feel like a kind of listening. You do not push, you do not cheer. You just stay still and let the bird test the edge of its own comfort. Sometimes it leans forward once, then pulls back. Sometimes it lands closer than yesterday and freezes there, bright and tense, with the seed going untouched. And when that happens, you can feel the answer forming. Almost. So this is the day the seed leaves the feeder. Your palm is open, a little cool in the air, a faint smell of sunflower husk on your fingers. The bird arrives the way it always does, quick, bright, exact, and then stops short, just on the nearest twig, claws tight on the bark, body angled toward the food and away from the risk. A great tit knows what a feeder is. Your hand is not that. It is warm, jointed, alive. It could move. And that changes the whole puzzle. The seed is familiar. You are familiar. But this new shape, this living surface where the seed now sits, has to be judged all over again. You see it in the pauses. The bird leans forward, lifts, settles back. It flicks to the rim of the empty tray, then to the branch, as if checking whether the old arrangement might somehow return. Nothing in the scene is loud, but the silence has weight now. This is the part people most often interrupt. A finger shifts, a wrist rises, the offer gets pushed closer, and the moment closes. Because what the bird needs here is not encouragement. It needs one stable fact it can keep measuring against. So you stay still enough that your hand almost stops feeling like part of you. Then the bird drops lower, not to take the seed yet, but to hover for a breath just above your palm. And after that hover, the bird does not rush. It hangs there for a breath, wings tight, feet ready, the yellow under its throat flashing once in the gray light. Then it slips back to the twig. The moment changed. The great tit has now learned that your hand can hold still long enough to be counted, and that matters more than courage on its own. This is where the approach tolerance gradient shows itself most clearly. The bird is not deciding once and for all. It is comparing this second to the last one, this distance to the one before it, this shape of palm to the older shape of feeder and rail. A tiny revision, then another. The body says yes a little sooner. The feet stay put a little longer. The eye returns to the same place again and again. If you are standing there, you feel the weight of that in your own arm. The seed does not belong to a trick now. It belongs to a negotiation the bird is having with its own threat radius. And the quiet is what lets that negotiation continue. So you keep still. You let the air cool on your fingers. You let the branch creak, the tray rattle, the garden settle around the two of you. The bird returns to the edge, closer than before, and this time it does not retreat at once. It only tilts its head and looks straight at your hand. And then, almost without ceremony, the last inch disappears. The bird drops from the twig to your palm, so light you feel the change before you see it. There is a tiny scratch of claws, a quick warmth against the skin, and the seed tilts in the middle of your hand, while the garden goes very still around you. The great tit does not linger like something trained. It arrives like something that has finally run out of reasons to stay back. This is the part that feels larger than it looks. For that brief touch, the old threat radius is gone, just set aside for this one person in this one moment, because the bird has gathered enough evidence to make a different choice. That is what individual recognition looks like when it is happening in real time. And if you are standing there, you can feel how fragile it is. Your fingers want to close. Your breath wants to change. But the bird is reading all of it, still. So you keep the hand open, steady, almost empty, except for the seed and the weight of the moment. It pecks once, then lifts back to the branch with the same bright, clean movement it has always had. But now the yard is altered. Not because the bird became tame, because it crossed a line it had been guarding from the beginning, and it knows it can cross back. By the next morning, the hand is not the question anymore. The seed rests there again, and the great tit comes in with that same bright, careful motion. But now it drops to the palm without the long delay. Just a touch, a peck, a lift back to the branch. The whole thing is over almost as soon as you register it. And still, it feels different. Because the bird no longer treats your open hand like a problem it has to solve from a safe distance. That is what all those quiet mornings were building toward. One wild bird deciding that for one person, the risk has fallen low enough to step across its own line. And if you look at the tray after it leaves, with the husks scattered and the branch settling back into place, you can see the shape of the answer in the ordinary things. The seed is gone, the hand is empty, the garden is exactly where it was before, and somehow not the same. By evening, the feeder sways a little in the cold air, and the lilac branch stays still. If you want more quiet backyard science like this, subscribe and stay close for the next one.